What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about how 2020 is Rocksteady's year. Now, this is going up, I believe, on New Year's Eve. If you guys are watching it today, watching it tomorrow, maybe on New Year's. Firstly, thank you for allowing yourself to watch or listen to me ramble on one of your holidays. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys will have an awesome New Year's Eve, have an awesome New Year's Day. Hope for all the best for you. I'll bring in 2020 with a bang. Hope you guys, again, just have an amazing day. Spend time with family, friends, whatever you want to do. And in this video, I kind of want to piggyback off of, I've made a lot of videos kind of capitalizing, I guess, if you want to say that, on basically the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. But that really is, and I've talked about a little bit in past videos, and I kind of hinted at it with, will Rocksteady's game come out before Montreal's game? I talked about it with like E3, how I don't know if Warner Bros. Montreal's game fits there because of Rocksteady. And so in those videos, I've kind of said, but I want to make it the full topic here. 2020 really is the year of Rocksteady. And I mean, that could be argued because here's the thing. At the end of 2020, we could very well know both, and I expect, by the way, to know both of Warner Bros. Montreal's game and Rocksteady. I expect it by the end of 2020, by December 31st of 2020, I expect to see and have, like, out in the wild, trailers of both of these games. Maybe not gameplay, but at least trailers, and at least know a little bit about what's going on with both their games. So you could argue it's kind of shared. It's kind of like both their years. When people were talking about 2019, it was kind of like the year of Batman, right? Everybody was saying that 2019 is the year of the Batman game. And now it's like, well, I don't know, right? Like, is it 2020? Because depending on when it gets announced and depending on and this is a Rocksteady video. That's why I'm kind of putting them in the front instead of Warner Bros. Montreal. But talking about them really, really quickly, it depends on when that game gets announced for when it releases. Rocksteady has always been interesting. Rocksteady has always been very, very quietly under the radar, just, working away at whatever the heck they're working on. Is it a Superman game? Is it a Suicide Squad game? Is it a Justice League game? I don't know. The leaks of what's happened with Warner Bros. Montreal when it comes to a Superman game and Warner Bros. In general when taking pitches for a Superman game, it would illustrate to me that it isn't happening, and they've said it. I mean, Rocksteady has said it's not a Superman game. At the same time, game developers literally lie for a living. I can point to numerous examples just over the last half decade of gaming developers lying about sections of their games or plot lines or characters or are they coming out then or there or on what kind, like that kind of stuff. That happens literally all the time. So just because they say they're not doing a Superman game doesn't confirm it. However, the leaks of Warner Bros. Saying that they've taken pitches and, maybe there's a Superman game in development, but we don't really know, and everything up until that point has been canceled and just has never really worked, and because of their requirements for what a Superman game would need to be, it doesn't look likely. Stuff like that, you can assume that and we've talked about it, could it be Superman? Could it be Suicide Squad? Could it be Justice League? But when you look at 2020, Warner Bros. Montreal is going to do their thing, but really, Rocksteady needs... I don't want to make it like we made Warner Bros. Montreal this year, where it's like, okay, this is the year. Like, Warner Bros. Montreal needs to do it. They're the front and center of every storyline, and even when they don't announce something, they're still, put to the fire. Like, everybody's out talking about Warner Bros. Montreal in, like, what are they doing? What are they working on? I don't know if 2020 is going to be that year for Rocksteady. To be quite honest with you, I feel like Warner Bros. Montreal has, like, a shield over Rocksteady, where, like, imagine like a huge spray of arrows, like a 300 style arrow thing, but instead of it hitting Rocksteady, Warner Bros. Montreal jumps in front of them and takes those arrows. I truly do believe that. I believe because of all of the garbage that's happened there, and I mean, not, okay, if you don't want to be so harsh, all of just like the hardships and the problems that they have faced over the last couple years, that's what puts them, like, ahead. So as long as they don't have their stuff together, as long as they haven't quite figured out, which up until this point they still haven't, up until they do, really all eyes are kind of on them. Like, yeah, people are very interested in what Rocksteady is making. I'm super interested, but I just feel like, well, one, they're very secretive about it, and they are good so far. I don't want to jinx it, and I also don't want to, like, go ahead of myself. So far, they've been pretty darn solid at hiding it, at hiding what it could actually be. Now, I mean, if it's a Justice League game, people would have talked about that already. If it's a Suicide Squad, so like we could have already nailed what game it is, but we still don't know. So props to them for that. But 2020 needs to be the year that they step out of the shadows and say, okay, here's our game. We talk a lot about Warner Bros. Montreal for how long it's been with Arkham Origins, but then you look at Rocksteady, and this E3 or late June, I believe like June 25th of 2020 will be 5 years after Arkham Knight came out. So that is an enormously long time. And I feel like they've also had maybe some problems, or maybe they're just making the biggest game humanly imaginable. I know development times can take 5 years, but you have to imagine even if you announce your game, when does it release? And that's another thing. That is another main problem with this that we talked about way back in August, and we talked about with Harry Potter, the Magic Awakening game. That's now a card game, but there still could be that open world RPG game. We talked about Rocksteady. Remember when we talked about the order that these games need to be announced and released, that they can't fight each other, that you would imagine it would go in the order, that they would release in the order that they're announced, which is also what we can kind of all, using intuition, predict which one's closer to being done. Warner Bros. Montreal seemed like it was closer, then Rocksteady, then this Harry Potter game. Like, that's kind of the order. Does that get all thrown, like, put in a blender and mixed up now? Because what if Rocksteady, like I said, what if Rocksteady's game comes out first? What if Rocksteady announces their game at E3 2020 and Warner Bros. Montreal still is nowhere to be seen? A lot of people will go towards it's been canceled, it's been completely reworked, and I wouldn't blame you for saying that. I think there would definitely be something to that. But then, like, well, does that mean Rocksteady's game comes out, like, with next gen immediately, like fall window, or maybe the spring of 2021? Like, is that the plan? Because if that's the plan, then it should be, and it will be announced in 2020. I mean, that's just the way they're going to do it. Warner Bros. Doesn't really announce their games to have them come out 2 years later, right? So if they announce it, say at E3, and I think that's the biggest stage you can. I've never been a fan, well, recently, I should say, over the last, 4 years, I haven't really been a fan of E3. I've always felt E3 is slowly dying. We're moving away from it. Companies don't need big stages to announce things, and I still believe that. However, the problem is this year with tomorrow, 2020, with next generation consoles coming out, it makes E3 the biggest thing. It actually gives entirely new life to it, and then we'll see if it continues to. I feel like if you looked at a chart, it's been going down the last couple of years, and then it's going to get a huge spike this year, and then we'll see if it keeps going down after that. But this year, everybody's going to be there. Everybody's going to be talking about their games for next generation. It's going to be a big thing. And so because of that, why wouldn't Rocksteady participate in that party? They've always also been one to say, hey, we're not going to E3. We're still working on our game. We're sorry, we're not ready to announce it yet. And you know what? That's fine. And really, truly, guys, I honestly feel like it's just because it's Warner Bros. If this wasn't Warner Bros., if this was Sony, if whatever game this was a Sony exclusive, I think Sony would have showed it a year and a half ago and been like, here's what they're working on. It's not going to be ready for 3 years. Don't get your hopes up. You're going to be playing it anytime soon. But we wanted to show you what they're working on. I really feel, and not just Sony, first-party studios, Nintendo, Microsoft, Halo Infinite got shown years ago, Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, all of these games, Gears 5, they all got shown years ago. Even Legend of Zelda, from when it got shown, Legend of Zelda 2, whatever it's called, to when it comes out will probably be over a full year. So, they do that, and Warner Bros. Just doesn't. But I really do feel like if there's a time to do this, it's 2020. If there's a year to announce Batman, it's also 2020. This is the year we're going to get tons of announcements, and I feel like by the end of it, and that's the biggest thing, depending on what we get, because if we get, say, the announcement for both of them, and we get a trailer for both of them, but then we have, a release window for Rocksteady, or we have a gameplay trailer for Rocksteady, but we don't have one of those two, or either, or whatever, from Warner Bros. Montreal's game, then it's wow, 2020 Rocksteady came, announced everything, and took it. Even though Warner Bros. Montreal should have gone first and should have already done all this stuff, it is the main problem of what they let slip away in 2019, is doing it by themselves. Because it's the biggest thing. And yes, a Batman game will always be big. I'm not saying that an announcement of a new Batman game won't be big. But compared to whatever Rocksteady's working on, I feel like Rocksteady would definitely take people's thought. You know, people would definitely be focusing on Rocksteady rather than Warner Bros. Montreal, and that is a big problem, I feel, and I do feel like we're moving closer and closer, definitely, to a 2020 where that could possibly happen, where if Rocksteady comes and they basically show more or talk about their game more, they will steal 2020. But I've always thought, I mean, I have always said this, even back in August when I've said, you know, why Batman needed to be announced in 2019. It's because I always thought 2020 was Rocksteady's year. E3 2020 is Rocksteady's show. Now, not for everybody. Like, Sony will be huge and Microsoft will be huge, but like, in terms of Warner Bros. Montreal or Rocksteady or Warner Bros. In general, all of the studios they have. Maybe there's a Lord of the Rings game. There's a Middle Earth game that they're, you know, Middle Earth Shadow of whatever, the third installment. That could very well be shown as well, but it's Rocksteady's show to take. And I've been thinking that for over a year now, and I still think it. That's why I said a few weeks ago how Batman game, Arkham game needs to be announced before E3 because they are not stealing E3. I guess it's Rocksteady's show to lose in the Warner Bros. Arc. And yeah, I mean, if they don't show anything and Warner Bros. Montreal does, then I was completely wrong, and I don't know what Rocksteady is doing now. But I can only handle one studio at a time, not being able to handle anything. So I'm going to focus on Warner Bros. Montreal for that. And then again, when they figure it out, then we can all focus on, hey, does Rocksteady have their stuff together? Like, what are they up to? And I feel like that's honestly what a lot of people are doing. Nobody's focusing on why haven't we gotten a game from Rocksteady because Warner Bros. Montreal is so in the forefront. But then once they figure it out, well, then it's like, oh, hey, Rocksteady, you guys haven't done a game, you know, stuff like that, which is going to be really, really interesting to see. So, guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think 2020 is Rocksteady's year? Do you expect to see their game in 2020? What do you think it is? When do you think we'll see it? How do you think that influences the Arkham game? All of those things, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys, as always. You guys made 2019 an amazing, amazing year for podcasts. Now we had so much fun. We grew so much, and we're very excited for an awesome and bigger than ever 2020 year. I think we're going to do a super, super amazing in 2020. Have a happy New Year's Eve. Have a happy New Year's, and I will see you guys on the next video.